I want to talk about my experience of going to a coding boot camp. I want to talk about the good and the bad and the ugly. And trust me, there's a lot of it. But yeah, I guess I just want to talk about my experience and if I think it's worth it. So I went to UCLA Extension in 2019. I did a 6 month boot camp part time. So what that looked like was I went Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Tuesdays and Thursdays were 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Saturdays were 10 a.m. to 1. Saturdays were really hard. I'm going to just say that. Um, but the course was a full stack development uh, program. So we did everything from HTML, we did CSS, we did a little bit of JavaScript, we learned the framework React, we did some stuff on testing with Mocha Chai, and then we dabbled in database for a little bit too. And I say dabbled really because like the course itself was 6 months, but we didn't really spend a lot of time on one particular thing. So we did HTML for a week, then we did CSS for a week, then we did JavaScript for a week, and then we did React for 2 weeks. And then, um, so for me, it never was really a deep dive into a certain subject. It was kind of like intros to everything. And every week we had homework that we had to complete by Saturday at midnight. So, like, depending on whatever we were learning that week, that's what our projects would be kind of based upon. And I mean, we did like train builders. Oh my gosh, sorry. Train builder schedules. We did like a trivia game. We did rock, paper, scissors. Um, yeah, I mean, literally everything we did. We kind of played with like making like databases. So, um, yeah, that was the homework that we had to do, and then we had 3 projects in total throughout the whole course. It was really just teaching us how to work with other people. And that was probably one of the hardest things. So you would have 2 weeks to work on a project, and you could pick whoever you wanted to be. If you wanted to do like 3 to 4 people per group, so you would pick the people that you wanted, and you'd probably pick people who were like the hardest workers, right? Not just your friends, which makes things a little complicated when you're like, no, I don't want to work with you, which I definitely had to do. But so anyway, so you'd pick who you wanted, and then as a team, you would decide what the project was that you were going to be building, and then you would kind of like assign out, depending on what that person wanted to do. Like if they were more front end, if they liked that more, then they would do that. Or then of course you had to have someone for like the back end, and then you had to work as a team, and maybe some people did more than others, as you can probably expect. And then you really had to learn how to push up your code and fix all those merge conflicts, because you are kind of doing your own thing while your partner is doing their own thing. And then when you combine your code, it's just a hot mess. Project weeks were insane. Like if if you are going to sign up for a boot camp and you're going to take it seriously because this is what you want to do, I mean, in general, I feel like the boot camp experience was so intense, but project weeks were, whew, they were very intense for me. Um, let's see what else. The teachers. So I had a teacher Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on Saturdays, um, it would be my cohort teacher and then the other cohort teacher, they would alternate. So, and yeah, so I would, the thing I want to say about that, um, which is maybe a little bit of the bad, and, I definitely, I wrote an article about my experience and I sugarcoated it a little bit. It was like a year after my experience, and I sugarcoated it because I didn't really want to hurt anybody's feelings. Like if somebody from UCLA saw this, or like my teacher saw it, or like my TA saw it, but like my experience was that my teacher was a really great developer. Um, he I remember in class, like him basically being able to debug anything. I would go to him with my problems, which at the time I'm sure they're just little baby problems, but like he could debug anything. And he had a job that he was really successful in, but he wasn't the best at breaking things down. And when you already have a concept like JavaScript that's like so hard to wrap your head around, at least for me, like I didn't pick it up naturally. It took me, I don't even remember at what point like the light bulb clicked and I was like, oh, I get it. Like, yeah, it was like it was definitely a hard subject to like master, and to have a teacher who like couldn't really break it down in a way like for somebody like me and like a lot of my friends in the class to understand. It was hard. I didn't excel in that class as like much as I could have if you had like a teacher who could. And I felt like the other cohort, the other teacher, he had a great job too, and he liked to do this for fun, and he'd been doing it for years. Like he was a great teacher, and he knew exactly how to break it down. When I had Saturday classes with him, I just soaked everything in. Like he was great, really was. Um, I had expressed this to, I think, like one of the ambassadors, and they kind of brushed it off like, oh, it's just really hard. So deal with it, kind of. And I ended up going to that other teacher and saying, like, can I please have your recordings? Because I'm not really following along in class. And so basically, I would go to a 3-hour class with my teacher, not really understanding what was going on, and then going home or like the next day watching the other teachers just so it could like fill in the gaps of what I didn't know. Um, so yeah, it was a lot. Um, so yeah, I felt like even though this was a part-time course, it really felt like a full-time course, like between having to watch this other teacher's work and then having that homework on top of it. Like it was, I would say, you've got your classes are like 20 hours a week, and then you've got an additional 20 hours of homework on top of that, plus the other 20 hours I was watching the other teachers. So yeah, for me, I was like, this is a 6-month thing. Like, I'm going to get a job after this. It's fine. Just, I literally told all my friends, like, you will not see me for the 6 months that I'm doing this, because like you have to take it seriously or it's just not going to pan out. At least that's what I think. Okay, so I talked about the teachers. Now I'll talk about the TAs. The TAs, this is just my experience. I don't know what it's like for anybody else outside of my boot camp. So maybe it's different. Yeah, I'm not sure. But the TAs, to me, we went through so many of them. It kind of felt like they were they had experience, but like they were trying to get jobs, like real full-time jobs. And so, we went through quite a few that kind of just left because they got jobs and like they couldn't do both. And I mean, they were helpful in their own way. I mean, that's also part of the learning process, is like if you go up to somebody and you're kind of like pairing and you're trying to debug it and figure it out, like I'm not going to say that it wasn't great because I didn't have a lot of experience, but I mean, we cycled through them a lot. And I remember it was like the very last week or so, like last 2 weeks of school, and we were working on our final project, and our final project was in React, and I had tons of questions. And so you would work on your project in class, and then you would go and you would talk to like your TA, or you would talk to your teacher and kind of like ask questions or help debug. And I remember that, so we always had two TAs, and they brought in this new TA who didn't know React, and I was like, you can't help me. I mean, like, so that was really disappointing. So yeah, I would say like it as a whole, it wasn't perfect. Um, so that's my thoughts on that. Um, and let's see. Also, they offered um, career services, which is great. I think with UCLA, they don't guarantee anything. Like I know that there's some boot camps out there that do guarantee a job after this, and I think with UCLA Extension, it was like we are going to offer you career services to like help you get a job, and you'll have those services 6 months after the fact, like after you graduate. And I think that for me, it wasn't that helpful because I have worked many different jobs, like within startups, within the corporate companies. So I know how to do things like write a resume, write a cover letter, how to interview, what my pitch is that I'm going to, when they say, tell me about yourself, like I had all those things down. So I feel like the career services were more for people that were like maybe not so much coming from a background like that. And not to say that it's not helpful at all. I'm just saying it wasn't helpful for me, but I know that, a lot of other people like didn't know stuff like that. So that, yeah, so that is like the career services program. It definitely is like basic career services. So, but yeah, I definitely took on that opportunity. I took literally every opportunity I could to like just make a career change. So I was like, I'm always going to do my homework. I'm going to come up with the best project. I'm going to use career services. I'm going to use all the like open office hours. I'm going to do literally everything that I can to like get a job after this whole thing. So yeah, I mean, I look back on on those days like very fondly. Um and I know that there are a lot of developers out there who have a background in CS. They are self-taught, or they've gone this route where they do a boot camp. So I know that like this experience isn't for everybody, but it was, I feel, necessary for me, mostly because it's fucking hard. Like, it was really fucking hard. Like, I can't downplay that at all. You know, I know I had a lot of obstacles with me with like the teacher and the TAs and stuff, but I mean, even still, like going to class every day and just being confused. I would sit in class and just be like, what is happening? What is he saying? I mean, so much to a point where like I would tune him out. We would have a break mid class and we'd go get Starbucks down the street, and I wasn't super thrilled to like get back to class. Like I would come back to class late, and very unlike me, but like it's just like it's so draining and very exhausting like mentally for me. um that being said, like I still knew that like this is what I wanted to do, and like I was gonna do it, but it was hard. And I can't say that enough. So that being said, I made tons of friends in that class, and the views that I shared about everything, like they were shared with my friends. So it just, I didn't feel alone. I felt like I had support. I felt like people understood me. I didn't feel like, well, shit, this isn't for me. If I can't understand this, like I can't, like I'm done. I never felt like that. And I think it's because I had so many friends and so much support, like throughout that whole time. Like I felt like I had a community. And that was, yeah, I mean, had I gone on this journey on my own, I don't know if I could have done it. Like maybe, but there were, yeah, I mean, there were definitely days. So I remember a day in particular that I was struggling so much with my homework, and I just ended up drinking, and I was like, I can't do this. I suck. And I just drank. Like, and like even today I still kind of feel like that, but it was nothing like when I was in school. Um yeah, so for me, that experience, so worth it. Really worth it. Yeah, so after I went through the whole boot camp, I told myself I'm gonna give myself 3 to 6 months. After 6 months, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Why don't you have a job? And I ended up getting a job as an engineer, which I'm so fortunate to. And I actually got it in the middle of 2020, which is freaking crazy because it's like we were in lockdown when I got this job. I've got so freaking lucky. But anyway, so I just want to say, like, if you're thinking about going to a boot camp, I think one thing I didn't think about before I jumped in was like, what area do you want to be working in? Like, where do you see yourself? Because there's so many career paths that you can take, like with web development. Like, do you want to be a front end engineer? Do you want to be a back end engineer? Do you want to be both and be a full stack engineer? Do you want to be quality assurance? Do you want to be in DevOps? Do you want to be in security? Like, look at the options, look at the career path, and like maybe you don't know, but I feel like that's kind of where you need to start. And then once you kind of figure out which way you want to go, I think then figure out what the tech stack is that you need to learn for that. I've had people come to me and they just kind of jump into it and they're like doing Python. I'm like, okay, well, what was the thought process behind like signing up for that? And they don't know. So definitely do your research, like where you want to go. You don't want to start, yeah, you don't want to start something that one's not even in the right path that you want to be in. So either research it, find stuff online, or talk to somebody that's in the field. Figure out what it is that you want to do, and then figure out what school you want to go to, and make sure that they have good reviews, and make sure you look at their course list, of course. For me, I knew that I needed to be in class, and I knew that I was gonna struggle and I was going to need help like immediately. And I know this because So before I actually did this full stack boot camp, I did an 8 week course with General Assembly, and it was online. And I remember it was just HTML and CSS and like a little bit of web design. And I struggled so much with that too. Like looking back, it's kind of funny because it's just HTML. But I had so many questions, and I remember emailing my mentor, and my mentor wouldn't get back to me for like a day or two. So I would be literally blocked and I couldn't do anything. So by the time I was ready to like do a full dive into like this this boot camp, I was like, must be in person. But I know that like online is an option too. So yeah, just figuring out if you want to be in person or online. And then when you actually do that, like you're probably gonna pay. I mean, I think I paid like $10,000 for this course, and which means other people paid $10,000 for the course, and a lot of people dropped out halfway through. Like even before halfway through, they dropped out, and then like half of the people that were left were not really like mentally there. Like sometimes they'd come to class, sometimes they wouldn't come to class. Like I haven't like caught up with everybody that I went to class with, but like I only know a handful of people who continued on and are engineers to this day, and a lot of other people just like quit. So I think like I said 100 times before, it's fucking hard. So if you're gonna do it, do it and go all in. Like don't just know like you're not gonna be able to half-ass it. Like unless you're a fucking genius and it comes easy to you and it's natural, and there are people like that, but like I don't know. Me, it wasn't like that. So definitely like be prepared to give your all, or just like expect like not much to come from it and you're just gonna like waste all that money. Yeah, and some advice that somebody had gave me before I started going to the boot camp was like study JavaScript beforehand. They were like just get like a little head start and look into the basics, and it's going to help you so much when you're there. And me, I was like, I don't need to do that. And I didn't. And when we started JavaScript, I was like, fuck, I wish I did. He was right. So, just a thought, maybe do like a little bit of research beforehand and like look up some JavaScript courses and look up the basics so that you're not completely lost like when you're in class. That would have been really helpful for me. And then after the fact, so what I've kind of learned about like just interviews is like some companies are very I feel like there's these stances of like some engineers are like very pro JavaScript data structures and algorithms, and some are very like against it, and they're like, you can't really tell like an engineer's level by those. And so you get the ones that are like very pro algorithm problems, and then you get the other ones who are like, no, we're just going to give you like a take home project and you can work on that. And so you don't have to learn the algorithm problems. I think you can find companies that don't ask those questions, but I don't know. I mean, maybe you can look ahead and like do some research on like if there's a certain company you want to work for and like what kind of interviews they give. But if you choose to go the route of like learning those, learn them soon, because they're also difficult. Like the way that I feel about them is they're like really complicated math problems, and I even to this day only know like the basic solutions to them, like the brute force solutions. I spent quite a bit of time trying to understand that, and then once I learned it, all the other engineers, I'd be like, "Hey, look at my solution." And they're like, "There's so many other ways to optimize this." So it's like, man, all I can say is like start learning them like while you're in school so that you can be really good at them by the time like you're ready to interview. Um, but if you don't learn it, like, I feel like that's kind of okay too, because uh, if you want to get a job, like, some of them just do take home projects, and like you can skip that part of it. So, but in my personal opinion, like, even just learning like the basics of it, like just learning like the brute force solutions, like, I know it's really helpful. Like, just learning that and just knowing that as an engineer, like all the different ways to manipulate and all the different methods that you can use. Like, I think it's helpful, but it's a little controversial, I think. So I guess that's my thing, is like, if you're going to learn it soon. Learn it sooner than later. So anyways, so yeah. So that is my super long rant. Maybe a little rambly. Sorry. I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to like the boot camps, but ultimately, if you were to look at me and say, Christina, was it worth it? I would say yes.